Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Meezan study series. So, in this session, we have been studying the book Meezan, which is Ustaz Ghamidi's understanding of the contents of religion. We had started off studying the chapter which is called Faith and Beliefs. In that chapter, we had finished the first of the important tenet of belief, which is belief in God. There is one important discussion remaining in that, and that we shall do near the end of this series or the end of the chapter, inshallah. So, now today we'll begin with the second tenet of belief, which is belief in the prophets. In other words, the important elements regarding beliefs in the prophets of God, how we can identify them, what is their nature, how they need to be believed, their human aspect, and a number of other things. So the way which Ustaz Ghamidi goes about describing each of these tenets, as in the case with other parts of the book, also is that he selects a basic passage that relates to the topic, and then he places it as the title of that particular tenet, and it's like his own statement that this is the most comprehensive statement regarding the belief in prophets. So I'm just going to read the topic. I'm just going to skip the Arabic text and read the translation before you. It says, "Pay no heed to them, O Prophet. We sent our revelations to you the way we sent them to Noah and to the prophets who came after him. And we revealed them to Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, the progeny of Jacob, Jesus, Job, Jonah, Aaron, Solomon. And we gave the Psalms to David. We have sent revelations to messengers whom we have mentioned to you earlier, and to some messengers whom we have not mentioned to you. And with Moses, God had spoken the way one speaks. These messengers who were sent as bearers of glad tidings and of admonishment, so that after them people are left with no excuse, which then they can present before God, and God is mighty and wise. So clearly, you can see that this is a very comprehensive passage, and the reason it seems that the Almighty has said that there are certain individuals called prophets of God, messengers of God, whose accounts have not been narrated here, although they have existed, is because this book primarily was meant to call the Arabs, the people living in Arabia, and teach them a certain lesson and let them know that the fate of the nation of the prophets who were before them and who they very well knew is going to be the same. And if they follow their footsteps, it's going to do the same. So that is why it is said here that there are some prophets whose anecdotes, whose accounts have been narrated, and others who have not. So, but going back to the basics, people through whom the Almighty completed providing His guidance to mankind are called prophets. So, in a nutshell, we can say that people through whom the Almighty completed providing His guidance to mankind are called prophets, and they were in fact human beings. None of them was anyone that belonged to any other species. The Almighty selected them for this purpose on the basis of His all embracing wisdom and knowledge. And as such, the important thing to note is that prophethood is something which is bestowed by God. It cannot be acquired through self effort or training or grooming or trying your own best to get connected with God. No, that's not going to happen. It is something that it comes from God. God chooses the person whom He would like to bestow with prophethood. At one instance, the Quran has narrated the incident in which Moses was given prophethood. So it is said that when he reached the valley of Mount Sinai with his family on his way back from Madian, it was, of course, nighttime. It was difficult to find one's way in the dark, and it appears that it was quite chilly, quite cold. And during this journey, he saw a darting flame at a distance. And it seems also that perhaps it was only Moses who observed it. The family did not. So he actually asked his family to stay where they were, and he himself expressed his desire to find out more about what he had seen and possibly bring back some fire to warm themselves. Remember, it was a cold night, it was extremely chilly, and to see a streak of fire burning somewhere is like a welcoming sign. So he thought he'd go there, maybe some bushes burning or something else, and he just can just bring back a part of it. But when he came near the place where he had sighted the flame, guess what happened? He heard a voice say, Moses, I am your Lord. Innani anallahu la ilaha illahus. And then, fakhla na'alayk, take off your shoes. Innaka bil wadil muqaddasi tuwa. You are in the sacred valley of Tuwa. Anakhtartuka, I have selected you for the responsibility of prophethood and messengerhood. Fastami' lima yuha. So listen carefully to whatever is being revealed to you. So this was like commissioning, calling to office Prophet Moses. So the Quran has told us that after this he was given the same message as was given to other prophets of God. And it is precisely this that the Quran has stated at one place in Surah Taha. I've just summarized the translation, but I'll read it again. So the words that were spoken to Moses when he reached that place where he had spotted the fire, the words were, I am God. Indeed, there is no God but me. So serve me, and for my remembrance, pray with vigilance. The hour is sure to come, but I will keep it hidden. It shall come so that every soul is rewarded for its labors. Thus, any person who does not believe in it and yields to his desires should not turn you away from the prayer, lest you perish. So this was the first contact which Moses had with the Almighty. It was indeed his singular distinction, as the verse that we have read earlier on also states, that he was spoken to by God. And the incident of the first revelation to Prophet Muhammad has also been narrated in the Quran. And this is in Surah Najm. And it is evident from it that the position of prophethood was conferred on him through Gabriel, the exalted angel of God. So remember, in the case of Moses, it was God who spoke directly. But in the case of Prophet Muhammad, it was Gabriel who was sent to commission him, so to speak, and to designate him as a prophet. The Quran says that on this occasion, he appeared in his actual form on the higher horizon, and the Prophet saw him with his naked eyes. So he actually was there in his own appearance. He then came near to him to instruct him, and just as an affectionate teacher bends over his dearly loved student, Gabriel bent over him with great love and affection and came so close that, as the Quran says, he was within 2 bows length or even closer. 2 bows length or even closer. So, and then the Quran has actually depicted this, as I just said, in Surah Najm. Let me also cite that these verses from you, verses 5 to 10. It says, he was taught by an angel, mighty in power, towering in character, endued with wisdom, while he stood poised, being on the higher horizon. Then he drew near and came down within 2 bows length or even closer. The Almighty then revealed to his servant that which he revealed. So this is how the first revelation came to Prophet Muhammad. Now, these prophets were sent, as the Quran says, to every community. God had promised Adam that he would guide his progeny through his own self, through divine revelation. And this guidance was given to mankind through these very prophets. After receiving revelations from God, they tell what is the truth to people, give glad tidings to them, that if they believe in Him, they are going to prosper, but if they don't, then they shall meet a dreadful fate. So at one place, the Quran has said this absolutely clearly and designatedly said that this is what your job is. So the words are, we have sent you with the truth as a bearer of glad tidings and warnings, and there is no community in which a warner never came. وَإِن مِّنْ أُمَّةٍ إِلَّا خَلَا فِيهَا نَذِيرٌ. There is not a single community in which a warner came. So this means that the whole arrangement that was made by the Almighty was that every single community received God's messenger. Now, details regarding these prophets which have been mentioned in the Quran and which should be kept in mind by everyone for professing faith in them, will now be discussed one by one. So, Ustaz Ghamidi, after giving this basic introduction regarding the selection of a prophet and how two prophets of God, Prophet Moses and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them, they were given prophethood. See, he has actually said that one by one, now we need to understand some more details, and each of them have been derived from the Quran. The first thing, the first thing which Ustad Ghamidi says that has to be kept in mind is regarding the essence of prophethood. What exactly is the essence of prophethood? So we will discuss this point under this title, that the essence of prophethood. What exactly is the essence of prophethood? The substance of prophethood. So Ustaz says that prophethood is the selection of an individual for the purpose of communication with the Almighty. And the Quran has actually informed human beings that he has been blessed with this honor in two ways. So when the Almighty decides to discuss or to reveal his guidance to people, he adopts two ways. Of course, regarding Moses, it was an entirely different scenario, which is also covered by these 2 points. But the basic tenet that has to be understood is that there are two ways. First, communication from behind a veil, from behind some obstruction. Now, in this case, a person hears a voice. In other words, a prophet of God hears a voice but does not see who is conversing with him. This is exactly what happened in the case of Prophet Moses. Someone was talking to him, which is obviously God. He did not see him. There was some obstruction, but that is how it happened. He started to hear a voice from a tree in the valley of the Mount Sinai, but there was no one he could see. It was as if the voice was coming out of the tree. So this is one way that a person hears the voice, but he cannot see with whom he is conversing. The second is through divine revelation, which is called wahi. So one is through the agency, or through a voice which a person cannot, designate where it comes from or who is the speaker, but he can hear the voice. And the second is through wahi, or divine revelation. Now, the word wahi is used for revealing something in the heart of someone, as if you just know, you get to know, the way you get ideas, the way you get brain waves. So it is something that is spoken to with the heart. And this itself has two forms. When someone speaks, or when God sends his revelation, other than through a voice, but by speaking to the prophet's heart, it has two forms. Firstly, God directly reveals his message to the heart of a prophet. Allah kalbika, as the Quran says at one instance, that it comes directly to his heart. Secondly, he sends an angel, and this angel reveals something to the heart of the prophet on behalf of the Almighty. So in other words, divine revelation, you don't know how, we don't know the way a prophet receives it. We don't know what exactly is that experience. Yes, we do know from certain Hadith literature that the prophet would really feel some burden. He would sweat profusely. But what exactly was the nature in which the wahi was being transferred to him, that is something we don't know. But what we know from the Quran is that either the words are directly revealed to the heart of a messenger, or secondly, it's not that direct communication, it's through an angel. Like Gabriel, he comes and then he delivers the message of God. Now, this phenomenon can occur both when a prophet is awake and in a vision while he's asleep. So, this is something that is, again, an experience when he is fully conscious, and it could be an experience when he's not conscious, or is sleeping and he's seeing a vision or a dream. In case of a vision, whatever is communicated is at times in symbolic form. It's symbolism. The way revelations would come to Prophet Muhammad, as I just said, is described in various narratives, and at times it is said that it is evident from in some of these narratives that in its most intense form, he would hear the sound of a ringing bell, something ringing before the process of revelation started. And such was the intensity that he would become drenched with sweat, even in the coldest of weather. Even in cold weather, he would sweat profusely. And precisely it is this thing that the Quran has said, that if you ask God that what exactly is wahi, what exactly is divine revelation, then the Quran says it is beyond human comprehension. It says they ask you about a ruh, they ask you about wahi. Tell them, this wahi is from among my Lord's command. Little indeed is the knowledge given to you. So, as far as wahi is concerned, we don't know exactly its whole transformation, its whole process. Now, since revelations came, they would come to the prophets without any desire of their own, and it was from the divine part of the soul, they are absolutely sure about their authenticity. There's absolutely there's no possibility that it was inspired by Satan or by some evil spirit. At various occasions, for their own satisfaction, we do notice the Almighty shows some extraordinary sights and experiences so that they are reassured. An example of this is the Prophet's journey from the Baytullah to the Aqsa Mosque that occurred in a vision, in a dream shown to him. Subhanallazi Aqsara bi abdihi is a famous Quranic verse. Such experiences, they also occur in real life. So we know that this is something which the Quran has said. And an example of such an experience is mentioned again in Surah Najm, in which the second instance of revelation is also mentioned. So the words are, and he beheld him once again at the Sidra tree, beyond which no one can pass, near which is the garden of repose. At that time, the Sidra tree was covered with that which covered it. His sight did not wander, nor did it exceed the limit. In such a manner, he saw some of his Lord's greatest signs. So, another place in the Quran, all these ways of communicating with God are mentioned at one place. So, we just discussed that the Almighty would send wahi either directly through a voice, and you would not know the origin of the voice, or he would send it through, to the heart of a prophet, or to the prophet directly. One would be by involving an angel and he delivering the message, and the other would be that the angel would not be needed, but something would be given or communicated directly to the heart of the prophet. So this is mentioned in one composite way in Surah Shura, when it says, it is not the status of any mortal that God should speak to him except by revelation, or from behind a veil, or he sends a messenger, and through his permission, he sends a revelation to him of what he wills. So you see that this verse comprehensively covers what we have just discussed. Now, one thing which is also evident from the words of this verse is that divine revelation is not sent, as has been believed by a minority of scholars, in the form of an idea, and the words are of the prophets themselves. So there are some scholars who think that there is an idea sent to the prophet, and then he gives words to that idea himself. No, that is not correct, because the Quran explicitly says, "An yukallimahullah," that God talks to them. They are words. He hears them, he understands them, and he preserves them. And these words and their style are, however, something which a prophet is already familiar with, so that they are not incomprehensible and alien to him. So it is for this very reason that both the words and meanings of a revelation are specific to a prophet, depending upon his circumstances and abilities. That's an absolutely, I would say, important point to start with. That the essence of revelation is something that we just cannot understand. The process cannot be understood. However, as the Quran and the Almighty Himself has divulged, that these are the ways of revelation. Besides words being transmitted, either in the form of sound or to the heart directly, there is also a third way, although not covered in this verse, because this verse is dealing with words, things which are revealed to prophets in the form of words. Vision, of course, is something which is shown to them. So we see how prophets of God, they get educated through a vision. Have seen the vision of Prophet Abraham. We have seen the vision of Prophet Joseph, Prophet Muhammad himself's dreams. They have been mentioned in the Quran. So these are meant to instruct. And on most occasions, these dreams are not to be understood literally. They are to be understood in a symbolic way. We now come to the second topic, which the Ustad has said, which is again something very important. And this relates to the fact that what exactly is the need for a prophet? Why do we need a prophet? After all, we have a common sense. We have so much in our own selves. So about this, he writes that just as a person has been given the ability to infer through parables and induction, to make a whole through components, and then explain the components through the whole, all this is something which our intellect does. Similarly, we have the power to assimilate ideologies through which is obvious, and to draw analogies from what can be felt through the senses from what that cannot be. We have also been given the ability to distinguish between good and evil. Our intuition knows very well. Innately, we know what good and evil is. Also, we can make a distinction between what is right and wrong. And what is wrong, of course, is something which is abhorred by our conscience. And in fact, even we know that we have a comprehension of God and of His justice in our own intuition. These are some of the abilities which human beings have. So a prophet is not needed to inform people of these things. He's not needed to inform them of the basic models. He's not needed to inform them that there is a God. All these things are known to a person innately, and they are ingrained in him. So earlier on, the Quranic verse that we have, that the Ustaz has said earlier on, I mean the one that we just started this chapter with, it actually tells us that the need for a prophet did not arise. It did not arise to inform man or human beings of these things, these basic things that we already know. In fact, the need was this need was based on two reasons. I mean, there were two reasons which necessitated the coming of a prophet. Firstly, for completion of guidance. For completion of guidance. This means that human beings are reminded of whatever is ingrained in their nature in concise form, and whatever they already know, they are still in need of more details. In certain verses, the Quran has regarded this to be a completion of divine favor. Yes, you know a lot, but still that is not sufficient. You need something more than that. And for this, the Quran has said at one instance, and this is Surah Anbiya, verse 73, and we have made these prophets leaders to give guidance to the world at our behest, and revealed to them to do pious deeds, show diligence in the prayer, and give zakat. And they worship none but ourselves. So in other words, leaders to give guidance. وَجَعَلْنَا أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا. Hidayat, guidance, that is the first thing for which we need the services of a messenger of God. The second thing that necessitates the coming of a messenger of God, his envoy, his prophet, his representative, is what we call itmamul hujjah. Itmamul hujjah. What does that mean? It means to convey the truth in such a ultimate way that the addressees are left with no excuse to deny it. They become fully convinced. There is no possibility of any confusion, any doubt, any lack of information. So in other words, it means to awaken human beings from this slumber of unawareness, and after providing the testimony of their intellect and knowledge, they provide them with another testimony, specifically through God's messengers. So all they had from their inside is now corroborated through God's messengers, through, of course, their own personalities. And now they are left with no excuse. Any excuse that they can have is of stubbornness, which means that they know what the truth is, but they are arrogantly denying it. That is the only excuse that they can have. And thus, the Quran has also explained this at one instance. It has said, O jinn and men, did there not come to you prophets from among you who proclaimed to you my revelations and warned you of your meeting with this day? They will reply, we bear witness against our own selves. And indeed, the life of this world deceived them, and they testified against themselves that they were disbelievers. This was because your Lord does not destroy cities because of their oppression, if their inhabitants are not aware of the truth. So, in other words, clearly we can see that the reason that these prophets of God have been sent is that we bear witness against our own selves. This is what their self-admission will be on the day of judgment. Such will be the extent of communication. Not it will absolutely remove any misconception. So you see, every prophet of God, the way he converses, the power of reasoning that he has. At times, they are given miracles. Like, for example, we know Prophet Jesus was given miracles which were astounding in nature, unparalleled. Prophet Moses, when he had to go to the Pharaoh, he was given 9 miracles. And similarly, we know that Prophet Muhammad's own miracle is the Quran. So, what happens is that in the post prophetic era, in which prophets no longer come, we just cannot claim that the truth has been conveyed in the form of Itmamul Hujjah, in the form that we can 100% be sure that it has reached them. This can only happen in the times of God's prophets. Because of their own extraordinary personality, because of the accompanying miracles, because how God actually supports them directly. So that is what is something that leaves them with absolutely no excuse. And that is precisely why they are also punished in this world. People do ask that why is it that prophetic nations are punished and nations who came after them, they were never punished. So this is the distinction that we have to understand, that divine disasters, elements of nature, they punished the nations of the previous messengers of God when they deliberately, intentionally, after fully recognizing the truth, they said, we are not going to believe out of arrogance. And as you can see from this Quranic verse, Shahidna ala anfusina, that on that day they will bear witness against their own selves, and they will agree, yes, we were the culprits. So this is something which can only happen in the prophetic era, and that too in the times of his messengers. That makes them worthy of punishment in this world. It's going to continue in the land of Barzakh and still continue when they are resurrected on the day of judgment. And precisely for this reason, in the post-prophetic era, we cannot be sure, never be sure whether we have been able to communicate the truth to its ultimate extent, because for that we need the services of a messenger. Human beings cannot do it. They fall short, well short. And this distinction is something that we have to understand. If we don't understand, then people will, without realizing, will end up doing some of the same tasks and duties which are only the prerogative of the prophets of God. And here now I would like to end my discussion. So there are several of the points which Ustad Ghamidi has raised regarding the nature of prophethood, the description of prophethood, the extent a prophet goes. We'll be covering them, inshallah, in our next sessions. But for the moment, I'm going to call it a day, and we've discussed two important areas. One is the essence of prophethood, and the other is the need for prophethood. So if you have any questions regarding these two areas, you feel free to ask them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Our first question asks, How do the prophets make sure whether they are get what the message that they're getting is really from a divine being rather than some satanic jinn related influences?
From the content itself. Satanic jinn would never ask to worship one God. They were never asked to value good. I mean, Satan cannot go against his own self. Throughout this message, the proof of the pudding lies in its eating, as they say. The content, the way it is conveyed to them, can never be something which the devil has inspired. Because we know what the devil is capable of doing. I mean, the devil is, yes, he might lure people through being good, but he cannot do it all the time. He cannot condemn evil all the time and praise goodness all the time, which is the case with the Quran. And secondly, we also know that, I mean, this is something that we cannot give a proof of, but we have been told that this is something about which the prophets of God receive tremendous assurance from the divine self. They have a divine part of their soul from which they receive that divine assurance. But that's something, of course, is beyond our own comprehension. For us, it is enough to see that the message which the Quran conveys could not have been the message of the devil. The devil cannot call you to heaven all the time. He cannot say that justice is a good thing. So it's the content that gives us this absolute conviction that it is from God. And then, of course, there are so many other things. The history it narrates, it corrects the previous prophets of God's history narrated in the Bible. It gives predictions for the future. It tells us so many scientific facts. I mean, this is something which only God can know.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. And I'd like to remind participants that there's also an option to raise your hand to ask questions. So if you're more inclined or if you're able to unmute yourself and ask questions directly, that would be very appreciated. Our next question in the chat asks, is there any evidence of prophecy in the jinn's creation?
Prophecy in the jinn's creation, what does that mean? All that we
Like,
know
did
from the
the jinn?
Quran, yeah, what we know from the Quran is that prophets of God did come to the jinn as well. So, alam ya'tikum rusulun minkum yaqussuna alaykum ya ma'shar al-jinni wal ins. The Quran, at one instance, I think it's Surah Araf, it tells them that, O jinn kind and O mankind, did not my prophets come to you? So clearly, we do know from the Quran that the jinn had their own prophets.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, what was the miracle given to Abraham and what book was revealed to him?
So, as far as the miracle that was given to Abraham, remember, giving miracles is not a part of prophethood. It is a need at times regarding the circumstances that a person is. To the Pharaoh, Moses was sent with a miracle because, in the absence of any miracle, such was the tyranny of the prophet that he would not have allowed Moses to speak. To Jesus, of course, these extraordinary miracles were given because he was the last of the Israelite prophets, and the Almighty wanted to awaken them from their 2,000-year-old slumber. To Prophet Muhammad, of course, he was the last of the prophets, and the Quran had to be preserved. But it seems that to Abraham, there was no such, palpable miracle that was given. Yes, one thing that we can see from the Quran itself is his extreme ability of reasoning, the way he could silence his opponents. You can see the reasoning when he was asked to speak to Nimrod, the famous king. It's the way he spoke to him and totally silenced him. Similarly, in Surah Anam, we know he spoke to the elders who were believed in star worship and sun worship and moon worship, and the way he spoke to them was, it was in a way that they just could not answer him back. So it seems to me that, if at all, although there's no explicit mention, it seems the way that he spoke with such convincing reasoning, such powerful, I would say, power of persuasion, that the other person would get cornered. As far as the book that was revealed to Abraham is concerned, we find bits and pieces of it in the book of Genesis. So, this is the first book of the Torah. If you look at the Torah, you'll find that it starts with the creation of mankind, and after processing and progressing through various prophets, it goes right up to the era of Prophet Abraham, and there is a substantial amount that is dedicated to Prophet Abraham. So it seems the part in the Torah, the first book of the Torah, from where the story of Abraham begins, right until its end, that is what we can call as the remnants of the Sahifa or the scripture of Abraham.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question comes from Noshat Shafkat. Please go ahead.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. But Dr. You said that God had promised from Abraham onwards that he would be from time to time sending prophets down, and he had sent prophets down to every nation. But in Surah Yasin, it is mentioned, لِتُنذِرَ قَوْمٌ مَا أُنذِرَ آبَاؤُهُمْ فَهُمْ غَافِلُونَ, that there were some to whom the revelation had not come, and therefore they were in disbelief. Now, would the criteria for judging those people whom the Quran itself says were not sent messengers and therefore they remained misguided, how would that be explained, sir?
No, I think that's a different story altogether, and I don't recall saying that that this took place in the time of Abraham. That God promised that a messenger would come in every era. This actually took place in the time of Adam, when mankind was being created. So in Surah Baqarah, in many other verses, it is said that now you spread in the earth, and I will keep on sending my guidance to you through messengers, and those who obey these messengers, فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, they will have nothing to grieve or nothing to be worried about, and they'll enter the life of paradise. So that's a promise that was made to Adam actually.
That's
And
right, sir.
I could not get the second part, which in which you said that there were prophets to whom revelation was not sent. If I have heard correctly, what you can say is that there were prophets to whom books of God were not revealed, but
No, sir.
revelation.
I'm sorry for interrupting. My question is with regard to the people who were left heedless because no prophet came to them.
Okay.
لِتُنذِرَ قَوْمٌ مَا أُنذِرَ آبَاؤُهُمْ فَهُمْ
Yes.
غَافِلُونَ. Therefore, they
Yes.
were.
Yes.
That is my
Yes.
question.
Okay. So for them, you see, the Almighty has made this very clear that that they were the Bani Ismail. I mean, they were the ones to whom the book was sent only in times of Abraham and then Ishmael. And we know from Ishmael to Prophet Muhammad, there was almost a gap of 2 millennia, 2000 years. And that is precisely why they were called Ummiyin also, because they never received their divine guidance. And the Quran has said it's a special favor that the Almighty has sent a messenger to them. But in that 2000-year period, of course, if your question is that what became of them or what would become of them, the answer would be that they will be questioned on the basis of their intuition, on the basis of the awareness that is found in their own nature, and on the traditions of Abraham and Ishmael, which although had become distorted, but yes, we know that Hajj was something that was being done ever since the time of Abraham. Similarly, we know that all worship rituals, like including the prayer, the fast, it all started with him. So whatever form that they had in these rituals, whether they followed them or not, whether they followed the tradition of Abraham or not, which is called Millat Ibrahim by the Quran, by the way. So their reckoning would be on their base on this basis.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Dr. M. Shahbaz Anwar. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum, sir. So thank you for the lesson about why Allah sent the prophets for human being. But then this actually comes to another question. Then why Allah stopped sending the prophet after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Actually, it does seem that the reason is that mankind, the way it had progressed, it had reached a certain stage where the evolution of societies had come to the urban level. Remember, we were living in a tribal society, in a nomadic situation in which people were settlers. They were going from one place to another. But it seems that until the time of Prophet Muhammad, the urbanization of the world, so to speak, I'm just using a word, had reached a certain extent, and there onwards the Almighty deemed it appropriate. Again, it's an inference, of course. We cannot say with absolute certainty, because this is God basically who can answer this question ultimately. So it does seem that what happened was that the Quran was preserved, and the Quran itself then became the substitute of a messenger, so to speak. The guidance which was to be given by God's messengers now became enshrined and preserved. It could not be changed. It never has changed in these 14 centuries. And that book was sufficient. And along with that book, the practice of the Prophet, which is the Sunnah, which was transmitted the way the book was transmitted. I'm not talking about Hadith, because Hadith is they are isolated reports. It was the practice of the Prophet. So the practice of the Prophet, Prophet Muhammad, which he, of course, as the Quran says, followed Prophet Abraham. So those practices were transmitted through tawatur. Tawatur means a transmission, a method that invests certitude to the process of transmission. And on the other hand, we had the Quran. So because of this, the availability of these, both these, I would say, agents, the Almighty decided to terminate the institute of prophethood.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Bismillah, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. So, my question was that when Abraham was put in fire and that turned to a garden, is that a true miracle or is that not a true miracle regarding his prophethood?
Yes, that's a true. That is a miracle. In fact, that's a good thing that you reminded us. So the prophets of God, they are not harmed when they're delivering their message. So yes, the Almighty said, "Kuni ya naro bardam wa salaman ala Ibrahim." Oh fire, you become peace and just extinguish for Abraham. So you can count this as a miracle as well, that he never was harmed.
Okay, so basically, prophets can be given physical miracles that other people can see and intellectual miracles. I'm assuming because
Of course.
some things. Okay,
You
thank
see,
you.
when they are delivering their message, no harm can come to them. So that was a time when Abraham was thrown down a tall structure, and the time was still not ripe for him to have finished his job. He still had a task at hand. So, yes, possibly messengers of God can get killed, they can be murdered, but never when they are in the middle of their preaching. So, it does seem that this was the case with Abraham. So that is why God protected them, protected him.
Okay, so just elaborating on this question. So basically, the physical miracles the followers can see, but the intellectual miracles that you mentioned about them having some kind of a divine spirit where they can understand that they're getting direct revelations from God, those are also miracles. Right?
You see, that they should not be called miracles, because you see that is something which is privy to them and God. It's like communicating with God. We don't know how that communication takes place. Miracle is something which is palpable to other people as well. Otherwise, you just cannot call it a miracle. Miracles mean that I see something which is out of the ordinary, something which defies physical laws.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next question asks, you mentioned a verse of Surah Najm regarding the first encounter with Jibreel, but the prevalent view mentions that this encounter happened in the cave of Hira with some initial verses of Surah Al-Alaq. If you can kindly please elaborate.
So yes, that is a big misconception that has arisen because of the fact that this verse of Bukhari actually tells us that as if it was something that Gabriel came and he revealed the first 5 verses of Surah Alaq, which is Iqra bismi rabbikal lazi alaq. So I would refer you to some of the research work that has been done by Ustad Ghamidi, and as a student that I have also reproduced it in a different way, elaborating with a lot of, I would say, reasoning and arguments and proofs that this narrative has been misunderstood. And if you look at all the versions of this narrative, it seems that again it was a vision that was shown to Prophet. It was not that these verses were actually revealed. It was like a vision that was shown to him, and it happened in a way that prophets of God, they get used to the fact that well, the next time they're going to meet the angel, it would be with some divine revelation. So it was more of an acclimatization in a dream. And because this is a very detailed topic, I would ask Mariam that you can perhaps fish out or dish out the appropriate lecture, because I remember giving a detailed lecture on this topic, and also have a very detailed research article on this, the first revelation, which you can go through and see that how this whole episode of revelation of the Quran in the cave of Hira is absolutely baseless. It has become famous, but it is not only against the Quran. It has also a very weak, I would say, chain of narration, a very frail ascription to the Prophet.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. I will leave the link to the first Revelation lecture in the 23 Objection series in the chat, so keep your eyes on the lookout for that. Our next question comes from the Zoom user. That's their name. Please go ahead.
Yes, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मेरा नाम खालिद है। डॉक्टर साहब, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है, आपने जैसे फरमाया कि रसूलों के आने से इत्माम हुज्जत हो जाता है, तो अगर रसूल ना आए तो जाहिर है ये इत्माम हुज्जत नहीं होगा, और वो लोग जो इत्माम हुज्जत के बावजूद अंबिया पर और अल्लाह पर उस तरीके से ईमान नहीं लाते जिस तरीके से लाना चाहिए, तो ये एक लिहाज से उनके लिए बेहतर नहीं था?
नहीं, दो अलग बातें हैं। इत्मामी हुज्जत हो जाता है, उसका एक जरिया है पैगंबर, उसमें वहां मुतय्यन कर लेते हैं कि हो गया, इसलिए सजा भी मिल जाती है, वरना तो इत्मामी हुज्जत।
माफ कीजिएगा, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि इत्माम हुज्जत अगर ना हो किसी भी कौम पे, तो जाहिर है उनको पता ही नहीं है कि एक्चुअल क्या है, तो वो सिर्फ अपने वो इखलाकी जो पाबंदियां हैं सिर्फ उन तक ही उनकी जवाबदही होगी आखिरत में।
नहीं, देखिए, कुरान से मालूम होता है कि हर उम्मत के पास कोई ना कोई रसूल आया, कोई ना कोई नबी आया। ऐसा इम्कान बहुत कम है, अगरचे हम इसको रूल आउट नहीं कर सकते कि वाकई कुछ लोग ऐसी होंगे कि जहां तक पैगंबर की दावत नहीं पहुंची। पैगंबर तो किसी दुनिया में किसी ना किसी हिस्से में होंगे, लेकिन आप किसी ऐसी जगह में होंगे कुछ लोग कि जहां उन तक दावत नहीं पहुंची, उनके बारे में तो आप दुरुस्त कह रहे हैं। लेकिन कुरान तो ये कहता है वले कुल्ले उम्मतिन रसूल वले कुल्ले कौमिन हाद, कि अल्लाह मियां ने पैदाइश से लेके नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम तक हर कौम में रसूल भेजा है। इसके बावजूद ये कहा है कि हर कौम में भेजने के, कि जैसे कि है दुनिया स्कैटर्ड है, दुनिया के दूर दराज इलाके भी हैं, तो इसका इम्कान है कुछ लोगों तक ना पहुंची हो, तो उनके बारे में कहा गया है कि आपको फिर अपने जो ज़मीर की गवाही है, आपको अपनी जो विजदान की गवाही है कि खुदा आपके अंदर मौजूद है और नेकी और बुराई का शऊर आपके अंदर मौजूद है, उसकी बुनियाद पे आपका मुआवजा किया जाएगा। उस वक्त फिर पैगंबर के बारे में आपसे नहीं पूछा जाएगा कि वो आया या नहीं आया, तो इसका इम्कान है। वरना अल्लाह ताला ने हिदायत का इतना ये एक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव बंदोबस्त किया है कि यानी ये बहुत कम ऐसा वाकया हो सकता है, यानी होने को हो सकता है बिल्कुल, कि कुछ लोगों तक पैगंबर की दावत ना पहुंची हो या डिस्टॉर्ट तरीके से पहुंची हो। लेकिन जैसे कुरान ने कहा कि वलिकुल्ले उम्मतिन रसूल वलिकुल्ले कौमिन हाद, तो अल्लाह मियां ने कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ी है, हर कौम में रसूल भेजा, हर कौम में हादी और रहनुमा भेजा।
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Noshad Shafkat, please go on. Please go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Sab, as a follow-up, I probably didn't understand your last answer to my question. You said that those people to whom no prophets were sent, from Abraham, Ismail, right up to the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would be judged according to their intuition, and because the Hajj and the prayers were being performed. But there was a time when the Hajj was, absolutely jumbled up, and it was not the Hajj that was originally done, nor were the prayers that were being offered by these people to idols at that time. So, how would those people be judged who were born at a time when idol worship was common, when the Hajj was being done, as people say, around the Kaaba, which had
Yes.
so many idols? How would they be judged?
Yes, so you see, the Quran has also made that clear. It has said, Millat Abikum Ibrahim. The word Millat Ibrahim occurs profusely in the Quran. If you just write Millat Ibrahim, you'll get, I think, maybe about 50 references, which means that the oral guidance of Abraham had continued, in spite of the fact that, yes, idolatry had become prominent. And this was perhaps about, I would say, couple of 100 years before the Prophet was born, if I'm not wrong. Otherwise, from Ishmael right up to that time when idolatry had not become prominent, I mean, all this Millat Ibrahim was being carried through the generations. And yes, there was a time in which it became corrupted and it became polluted, and they ended up become mushriks. And that is precisely why Prophet Muhammad was sent, so that they could come out. So before he was sent, let's say a couple of 100 years ago, if people were still involved in idolatry, then the question there would be asked, of course, would be regarding the idolatry itself, whether this idolatry was supported by their own intellect, or as the Quran blames them by saying that you have no proof of it. When you are asked about it, you say, well, this is what our forefathers did, so we're just following our forefathers. So their questioning would be different. That whatever you're doing, did you give enough thought to it? Because you were born with the cognizance of a creator in your mind. What happened? And again, the third thing which is important is that absolute justice would be meted out. So all the requirements of justice would be met. And if people were deeply engrossed in polytheism and somehow they were just pushed into it, I mean, I'm not talking about all of them, some of them who are very maybe sincere, but they did not know that they are doing this. I'm quite sure, in fact, I'm 100% sure that the concession that would be given to them would be commensurate or in proportion to the I would say misguidance that is suffered inadvertently.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. That was it for all the topic-related questions. We have a couple of non-topic-related questions, and we still have some time. Can we take those?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, Shabnam, please go ahead.
थैंक यू मरियम जी सर सर एक्चुअली हमारी एक अजीज़ा की फौतगी पर कुछ थोड़ा सा लायानी सी बहस शुरू हो गई तो देवर पीपल हु वर सेइंग कि ये जो सारे चारों इमाम हैं ऑल फोर स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स वो बिलीव करते हैं कि डेथ के बाद मियाँ बीवी की का निकाह खत्म हो जाता है और एक दूसरे के लिए गैर महरम हो जाते हैं तो सर आई नो द आंसर अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह बट सर मुझे कहा गया था कि मैं अपने स्कॉलर से दोबारा पूछ के बताऊं कि उनकी क्या ओपिनियन है तो सर काइंडली आप गाइड कर दें
So, I mean, there is absolutely no. What can I say? I think people who say so should provide a proof from the Quran or some Hadith. I mean,
सर
you come up.
जी सर वो एक्चुअली हुआ ये कि उन्होंने मुझे तो उनके ओपिनियंस का तो मुझे उन्होंने भेज दिया कि जहां से उन्होंने गैदर की थी सबकी तो सर वो तो जाहिर है कि मैंने भी उन्हें यही कहा कि आप हमें दीन तो प्रॉफिट का ही वाहिद सोर्स हो सकता है तो ये तो इनकी अपनी ओपिनियंस है इसका क्या प्रूफ है और उन्होंने खुद भी कहा कि गालिबन कुछ स्कॉलर्स कहते हैं कि नहीं ऐसा नहीं है और वो हजरत अली ने गालिबन हजरत फातिमा को गुस्ल दिया था तो सर ये तो क्लियर ज़ाहिर है आप भी कह रहे हैं इंशाल्लाह समझ आ गया सर मैं थोड़ी सी कंफ्यूज इस बात पे भी हूँ कि ये आयमा ने कहाँ से ये इन्फर किया होगा कि ये ऐसा है
So, देखिए, we are not. I mean, how can we know from where they have inferred? They could have inferred from any place. But just to correct you, Asma binti Umais, she was the wife. She was the wife of Abu Bakr. And when Abu Bakr died, it was Asma binti Umais who bathed Abu Bakr before burial. Had she been non-mahram, this could never have happened. I mean, this is just like a practical answer to you. Otherwise, you see what has happened. What we have to understand is that in order to make something a part of religion, it has to be something from the Quran or from the Prophet. I have not seen in my life anything from the Quran or the Prophet which says so. It's basically an influence which people have made out of their own. It's not something found in the Quran or Hadith or any authentic source.
Right, sir. Sir, ये जो आपने मुझे correct किया है, सर ये हजरत अबू बकर ने भी अपनी किसी वाइफ को बेट किया था उनकी डेथ के बाद?
Asma binti Umais, as I said, she beheaded Abu Bakr.
I thought कि अस्मा ने हजरत अबू बकर को बेट किया.
That's what I'm saying. Asma, she beheaded Abu Bakr when he had died.
But not had Abu Bakr to any of his wife.
No.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge. Yes.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Omar, since you have chat questions, I think you'll be asking them yourself since you're raising your hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, I have a different question now, sir. In this second verse of Surah Al-Bayyinah, Rasulun minallahi yatlu suhufam mutahhara, you have translated it as a messenger from God descending from the heavens, reciting purified pages. सर ये जो डिसेंडिंग वाला वर्ड है ये आपने कहाँ से इन्फर किया है ये काइंडली बता दीजिए
Minallah. I mean, how can it be Rasulun Minallah when it's Yatlu Suhuf Mutahhara? It's basically Minallah is someone from God. The word Minallah has a suppression. It needs a verb. It's someone from God.
सर ऊपर से जो गामदी साहब ने जो ट्रांसलेशन की है कि आसमान से तो सर ये हेवंस फ्रॉम द हेवंस ये ब्रैकेट में है सर आपने
Correct.
तो ये कहाँ से
I mean, obviously what they wanted was, because this is mentioned at other instances, that they would want divine guidance coming to them and they would like to witness it, that it is being sent to him. Because you see, otherwise the Prophet would claim that Gabriel has delivered the guidance to me, or I have knowledge of guidance through my heart. So they said that what is the proof? We would like the guidance to be seen that it is coming to you.
थैंक यू सर सर ये और सवाल था कि किसी भी पैगंबर का नाम लेने के बाद जो हम अलैहिस्सलाम कहते हैं या सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ये क्या सर ऑब्लिगेटरी है
It's not a mandatory thing. It's a durood. The shortest form of durood is sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it should be said not only with Prophet Muhammad, but with all prophets of God. It's like a etiquette. It's like addressing them with respect, and addressing with them with respect is never becomes mandatory. It's a recommended thing. Mostly we do that, but if we don't do it, we're not something that is.
लास्ट क्वेश्चन है सर कि अपार्ट फ्रॉम क्रिश्चियंस एंड ज्यूज बाकी जो रिलीजियस लोग हैं उनको हम प्रॉफिटहुड के मामले में कैसे उनसे हम डिस्कस कर सकते हैं या क्या कॉमन ग्राउंड हो सकता है
You see, there is no rule of thumb for that. Every person has a background. Every person is stuck in one question or the other. So, I mean, it has to be that you discuss with that person, see from where he's coming from, look at his circumstances, look at how he argues and reasons. So, there's a host of variables, and we just cannot give one answer. So best thing is to do it on the case-to-case basis, see what the person is, where he's coming from, what is his background, how much he has studied, whether he's under the influence of a certain philosophical writing. Or, I mean, as I said, the variables are so many that we just cannot give a generic answer to this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Our next question comes from Bisma. Please go ahead.
So, Dr. Saleem, I know, of course, it's extremely important to understand the Quran in the language that we understand. But, sometimes I feel that just listening to it in Arabic is just a very, very peaceful exercise. So, is that more a personal feeling of peace, or is there also, something more to it, like a blessing that may come from God just because it's His word that we are listening to? So, that was
Yes.
just.
So, I mean, that's nothing that can be regarded as a religious practice. I mean, I don't know. I don't know Latin, but whenever I hear people speaking Latin, I really enjoy, although I don't get a word out of it. It's basically an enjoyment because it speaks in a very fluent way. So that's like a personal preference. It has nothing to do with religion. So if you listen to the Quran, it's like a smooth recitation and you feel good about it. I mean, that's like a personal thing. But it's not something which is anyway can be regarded as religiously soothing or maybe religiously beneficial, because that's not what it is meant to be. It's a book of guidance, and it's not a commonplace statement of someone who's just going to divulge certain secrets or maybe some extraordinary things. It's something that is meant to be understood. I mean, it is. I mean, it's quite preposterous that people just listen to it and they feel some comfort out of it. I do think that this has got more to do with our upbringing, because since childhood we are told that the Quran has a lot of I mean, it creates peacefulness, it creates those ripples of assurance around us. And because we have been programmed like this, so we feel very nice. And other than that, also, if a very good reciter reads out the Quran, that too is something that looks very nice, even if you don't understand it. But then that has a different purpose. It's just for a leisurely purpose. I mean, that could be done, but you see, that's not the only thing that should be done. The real thing that has to be done is to understand the Quran.
So basically, if you just want to listen to it because you find peace in just that practice, or whoever's reciting it, their voice or the way they're reciting it, that can be something like listening to good music also, just the peace that comes
Yes,
with it.
it's
Okay.
basically the same thing. It's just giving you some spiritual, not spiritual, I would say, but some mental satisfaction, and you're enjoying that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We are beyond the time of our session, and we still have a few more non-topic related questions. Should we take those tomorrow, towards the end of tomorrow's session?
If we have two of them, yes, we can take two questions.
We have 3 questions.
Okay, let's see.
All right. So for the participants, I will request you to please stick to your questions. Be very concise. Dr. Riaz Ahmed, please go ahead. And please, only one question.
Yes, Assalamualaikum. Doctor, I want to ask about fourth caliph, Hazrat Ali. Can we call him a Khalifa Rashid or not?
If you're asking my opinion or the opinion
Yes, your opinion.
Yes, I would call him a caliph. Of course, why not? What's the reason for not calling him? Because he was given, I mean, there could be a dispute in the way he was selected or elected, but there is no two reasons that he was not given the reins of authority. They were challenged, of course, by Amir Muawiyah. A lot of things ensued, but there's no one who has yet to challenge that he was not even a caliph.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next
Jazakallah.
asks, what are the 3 questions that our Prophet asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he answered 2 of the questions, but one of the questions he didn't approve of?
I don't know. Where did you read this from?
They have no citations. All right, so I will request the participant to please return tomorrow, perhaps, with where they got
the citation.
Where they got this from. And then the last question is, if Islam only abolished slavery gradually to prevent worse problems like slaves falling into prostitution or destitution, why did Prophet Muhammad have sexual relations with his female slaves? As the perfect moral example, wouldn't he avoid something that was still morally problematic even if it was temporarily allowed?
That is precisely the reason that he had relations with his wife, so that in that transitory period, in that temporary period where people were allowed to keep slaves, he could give an example and set an example that if you have to keep a slave woman, this is how you should keep her. And that is how he kept Maria the Copt. She virtually was like a wife. She virtually enjoyed the same status. She was respected. She was given a lot of regard. So exactly for this reason, that interim period, there should be someone who could tell people, who could set an example that even that interim period you have to have slave ladies. Then they should not be treated like animals. They should not be treated like commodities, which was the way that people did so. So the Prophet wanted to make sure that if you have to keep a slave lady, then this is the standard, and he set a very, very high bar for that.
Thank you. That was it for all the questions today. Thank you for giving us extra time towards the end of the class to answer non-topic related questions. Inshallah, we'll see you all tomorrow in another session of textual study of the Quran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.